gonna flip. It's so cool.
Oh, that's silver, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it's silver.
They found it. Buried under feet of clay and centuries of silence, a single piece of lead has turned the investigation upside down. Season 13 was supposed to be about the money pit, but the swamp just stole the show. We are talking about 7 artifacts that prove a pre-Columbian presence so advanced it challenges everything we know about the New World. From high-tech metallurgy to religious icons carried by fugitives, the evidence is undeniable. But the crazy part is the connection between a heart-shaped stone and a secret order that vanished in 1307. The truth is terrifying. Lot 5's dark secret. For over 2 centuries, the search on Oak Island focused on the 1700s, pirates, or 1600s British military. It made sense. It fit the books. But Season 13 just took a sledgehammer to that entire narrative. The crew moved operations to Lot 5, a seemingly random plot of land near the shoreline. And what they found there is effectively a glitch in the Matrix. They pulled up massive, waterlogged oak timbers. At first glance, it just looks like old wood. But here's the catch. When they ran the dendrochronology, that's the science of dating tree rings, the results came back with a date range in the 1300s and 1400s. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't a campfire log. This is a massive engineered foundation embedded deep in the earth. The joinery style doesn't match anything used by later British or French settlers. It's heavy, medieval construction. This means that 100 years before Columbus even thought about getting on a boat, someone was on Oak Island building a massive structure. And they weren't just visiting, they were building to stay. This timber changes the entire scope of the mystery.
Some looks ancient, some looks more modern.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece.
The perennial problem on Oak Island is it old enough?
It suggests that the money pit might not be a vault dug in panic, but part of a permanent settlement established during the Middle Ages. But it gets weirder. While the team was still reeling from the timber dates, the metal detector hit a signal that shouldn't exist. Buried in the same soil layers of Lot 5 was a coin. Now, we have seen coins on this island before, Spanish maravedis, British pennies. But this one was different. It was a Roman bronze coin. Numismatists, the coin experts, looked at the faded imperial motifs and placed it somewhere between 400 and 500 AD. This is the definition of an impossible artifact. A Roman coin, potentially 1,600 years old, sitting in Nova Scotia. Skeptics will say it was a trade good, maybe dropped by a later collector. It's not that simple, though. The depth of the find matters. It wasn't on the surface. It was deep in the undisturbed soil context. If this coin is legitimate, and early analysis suggests it is, it supports the wildest theory of them all. Transatlantic contact thousands of years before recorded history. It suggests the island has been a waypoint for ancient mariners long before the Templars or the pirates. Basically, Lot 5 has proven that the island wasn't just a bank vault.
That kind of button composition you wouldn't see in a regular old casual clothes.
Or a one-time deposit. It was a hub, a busy, active location visited by different cultures over millennia. The timber proves habitation in the 1400s. The coin hints at visitors from the ancient world. The show hasn't fully connected the dots yet, leaving fans screaming at their TVs. They are treating these as isolated finds. But when you put them together, a picture forms of a location that was known to the elites of the ancient world. It was a secret destination. And that brings us to the most disturbing question. If people have been coming here for 1,600 years, what were they bringing? Or more importantly, what were they guarding? The answer might not be gold. It might be something that required heavy industry to protect. The timeline is broken, but the swamp is hiding something much more dangerous. The man-made defense. Everyone is obsessed with the money pit, but the swamp is where the real story is hiding. For years, the team has suspected the swamp is man-made, an artificial cover for something massive. Season 13 has finally produced the smoking gun that proves this area wasn't just a bog, it was a defensive line. In Episode 5, amidst the mud and sludge, Gary Drayton unearthed a fragment of iron that looked like nothing more than scrap. But X-ray analysis revealed a complex internal structure. This wasn't a nail or a hinge. It was a fragment of a firearm mechanism. Specifically, it looks like part of a matchlock or even a wheel lock system. Here is the deal. The corrosion patterns and the style of the iron casting date this piece back over 800 years. We are talking about the very dawn of portable firearms in Europe. Finding a gun part from the 1700s is expected. Finding a firearm component that could be from the 1200s or 1300s is insanity. This implies an armed force. You don't bring experimental, high-tech weaponry, for the time, to a deserted island unless you are expecting a fight. This tiny piece of rusted iron changes the narrative from treasure burial to military operation. It suggests that whoever was here had access to the cutting edge of medieval warfare technology, and that's putting it lightly. If there were armed guards, what were they protecting? The answer came in the form of a small, innocent-looking disc. In the season premiere, they found a scalloped edge disc made of lead or tin. It was buried mixed in with coconut fiber. Now, coconut fiber is the classic Oak Island marker. It was used as packing material for cargo on long voyages. But the disc itself is the puzzle. It has notched borders and no clear inscription. Drayton called it a shipping seal. In the ancient world, shipping seals were used to lock bags of currency or documents. If the seal was broken, you knew the contents were compromised. Finding an intact or discarded seal in the swamp suggests that cargo was being offloaded and processed right there. The design is ominous. The scalloped edges mimic the 7 lives must be lost lore, although that might just be a creepy coincidence. But functionally, this disc links the swamp to high-value transport. You don't seal bags of grain with lead. You seal gold, silver, or documents of extreme importance. So, here is the picture Season 13 is painting. You have a man-made swamp reinforced with stones. You have shipping seals indicating valuable cargo was moved through this specific zone. And you have ancient firearm parts suggesting that this cargo was guarded by soldiers with top-tier weaponry. The show hasn't explained why a firearm from the Middle Ages is sitting in a Canadian swamp. They glossed over it to focus on the drilling. But this is the key. It proves that the depositors were not a ragtag group of pirates burying a chest. They were a military organization. They had discipline, they had technology, and they had a mission. The swamp wasn't a dumping ground. It was a loading dock for something that the world wasn't supposed to see. And based on the corrosion, this operation happened centuries before the money pit was discovered. But a military operation needs supplies. It needs tools. And most importantly, it needs a way to fix things when they break. The evidence found on the shoreline proves that this island wasn't just a storage facility. They were forging something in the fire. The sacred lead cross. If you think the firearm was shocking, wait until you see what was happening on the beach. In episode 2, the team dug up oxidized iron and copper shards. To the untrained eye, it looks like industrial waste. But the XRF scans, technology that breaks down the elemental composition of metal, revealed a rare alloy mix of tin and lead. This isn't standard colonial trash. This is evidence of metallurgy. The crazy part is the location. These fragments were found in layers suggesting a makeshift forge. This means the people on Oak Island weren't just dropping things, they were making things. They were smelting metal. Why does this matter? Because of the Templar Forge hypothesis. Historical records show that the Knights Templar were masters of banking and engineering, but also of metallurgy. They needed to repair armor and weapons on the fly. Finding slag and rare alloys suggests a long-term encampment where they were actively working metal. And then, the island gave up its heart. Literally. In episode 4, they found a 10-pound granite stone shaped distinctly like a heart. On the surface, it bears a faint, worn carving of a cross. Carbon dating of organic material found directly under the stone points to the 1200s. This is where the wow factor goes off the charts. Where the cross isn't a tool, it's a marker. It's a religious artifact. In medieval symbolism, the heart represented charity and faith, core tenets of the monastic orders. The carving style matches the graffiti found in the Dôme prison in France, where Templars were held captive. The show left this open-ended, asking if it was erosion. But nature doesn't carve perfect crosses into granite hearts. This stone was placed there. It feels like a memorial, or perhaps a boundary marker for a consecrated ground. If this island was a vault for religious artifacts like the Holy Grail or the Ark, you would expect to find religious markers. And finally, the pièce de résistance, the lead cross variant. We all know the famous lead cross found years ago, but Season 13 found another one, or at least a seal that mimics the iconography. It's a scalloped, lead seal with partial religious symbols. It's not a duplicate, it's a variation. This matters because it implies a system. One cross could be a fluke, a soldier dropping his necklace. 2 distinct lead artifacts with similar religious vibes. That's a pattern. It reinforces the idea that the people here were not just soldiers or sailors, they were pilgrims. The symbols on this new lead piece are unresolved. They look like a code. Some researchers believe these lead crosses were actually maps, disguised as religious badges. If you overlay them on the island, they point to specific features. The show is dripping this information slowly, but the conclusion is staring us in the face. You have a forge to work metal. You have religious icons dating to the exact time the Templars fled Europe. You have a defensive line in the swamp. This wasn't a pit stop. This was a relocation. The 7 artifacts of Season 13 prove that a group of people moved their entire culture, their technology, and their most sacred treasures to this remote island. They built a fortress underground and sealed it with a curse. The artifacts are pieces of a map, and they all point to one date. The big picture. So, what do these 7 artifacts actually tell us? It is time to look at the aggregate data without the filter of convenient folklore. When you step back and rigorously analyze the medieval timber, the Roman coin, the firearm, the disc, the slag, heartstone, and a lead cross, the pirate theory is dead. Hands down. The romanticized idea of a rogue captain burying a chest of stolen loot simply cannot survive this evidence. Pirates operate on speed, mobility, and temporary concealment. Pirates do not transport heavy medieval timbers to construct complex deep earth foundations in the 1400s. Pirates do not carry ancient Roman coins as valid currency. Pirates certainly do not take the time to carve precise religious hearts into immovable granite boulders as territorial markers. The logistics required for what we are seeing on Oak Island contradict the very nature of piracy. Season 13 has finally provided the physical proof of a multi-generational industrial-scale operation. The presence of the Roman coin suggests that this island was known long before the Age of Sail, a secret location known in antiquity and likely passed down through secret societies as a safe haven. It implies a lineage of knowledge, a map shared only among the initiated elite. Then consider the medieval timbers and the specific firearm parts. These artifacts indicate a massive mobilization of resources during the 13th and 14th centuries. This was not a weekend dig. This was a military-grade excavation supported by a supply chain that likely stretched back to Europe. The lead cross, with its specific metallurgy, acts as a signature, pointing directly toward the Knights Templar or a similar order with the financing to move mountains. The Curse of Oak Island isn't magic, and it isn't a ghost story. It's engineering. It is a highly sophisticated defensive system built by people who possess the wealth of kingdoms and a desperate need to disappear. The slag found on the island suggests on-site metallurgy and forging, meaning they weren't just hiding things. They were building things. These artifacts are the debris left behind by a civilization that went underground to protect something of immense value. The experts on the show remain cautious, often hedging their bets to maintain scientific rigor. They have to be. But for those of us looking at the raw patterns, the data speaks for itself. We are currently missing a single key detail, a master key, that definitively links the Romans to the Templars and finally to the island's geography. But one thing is absolutely certain. Whatever is waiting in the money pit is worth far more than gold or jewels. It is a timeline-shattering revelation. It is history itself. Do you think the Roman coin proves the timeline is wrong? Or was it just a lucky drop? These artifacts are changing everything we know. If you want to see more breakdowns of the history they don't teach you in school, smash that like button and subscribe. See you next time.